police in the morning.
Welcome, B-Movie fans, to this week's episode of B-Movie Chats. This week we'll be discussing zombies. Zombies have been a prominent part of our culture since George Romero's Night of the Living Dead in 1968. Since then, zombies have invaded every media platform in existence. The question is, why are zombies so appealing to people? What is it about the living dead that make so many people imitate the genre? Joining us for this week's chat is the creator of the comic book web series and soon-to-be feature film, Zombie with a Shotgun, Hilton Ruiz. Hilton, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, what's up? Thank you for having me on the show.
Oh, glad to have you with us.
Yeah, thanks for joining.
Yes, definitely.
So, first off, you seem to be the zombie expert here. Could you explain what exactly is a zombie?
Zombie is the living dead. Somebody that's be able to come back from life and be able to, come back with where basically it's doesn't have the mind of a human, but is able to move through an infection that controls it to be able to, in order for it to be continuing to live, needs to feed off of human flesh. And that's where Zombie with a Shotgun, of course, what I've done is a little bit different.
So a zombie has died and then has come back, but it's not a different being. It's not inhabited by something else. It's just the reanimated corpse.
Yes, exactly.
So just right off the bat, before we get into our discussion, there's a couple movies I want to chop right now that we will not be discussing in this episode, and that is anything to do with The Evil Dead and Army of Darkness, because contrary to popular belief, it is not a zombie movie.
They're possessed by demons.
Especially because they are possessed by Kandarian demons. And the 28 series, 28 Days and 28...
28 Days Later.
28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later, that was the other one, where they do not die. They just, are very angry with the rage virus. So
yeah, it's basically just rabies for humans, so it doesn't quite count. It's just rabid people. So zombies are basically like it's dead people risen up from the grave.
So those will be saved for a later chat when we talk about mislabeled movies. But anyway, zombie movies have come a long way since 1968. And I mean they were in film before that, but never as popular. But I forget where I was going here.
Yeah, basically zombies have... I think one of the reasons why zombies are so popular is because it's... The idea of seeing dead people come back to life just completely contradicts everything we believe in. And plus, what's more harmless than a dead body minus, viruses and things like that? Like, it's completely unnatural for it to come back. Plus, no matter what it is with a zombie, like if it's a virus or something, or if it's magic or anything like that, it's something's not right, because by all biology and logic it shouldn't happen. So it just leaves some kind of a mystery, I think, and it's one underlying thing behind it. It's like, why is this thing that's physically impossible happening?
I agree.
So what are some of your favorite zombie movies or zombies in media?
Right now, or just in general?
Just in general, some all-time favorites. I know.
All-time favorite zombies. Of course, everyone likes Night of the Living Dead. I always was a big fan of The Return of the Living Dead. It was a really, cool zombie film.
The Unkillables and the Tar Man.
Yeah, I love it. What else was really good zombie film, but it just didn't have too many zombies in the film, but it was basically about zombies. And oh my god, what's the name of the film? That was oh my god, forget his name. The guy who directed Descent, and then he directed another film afterwards. Was a film about Scotland that was infected, and they had to build a barrier around Scotland to not bring the zombies in. Well, oh my god, what's the name of that movie? It was such a good movie. I I guess it's not
I
ringing
know
a bell to you guys, huh?
Survival of the Dead, I think, takes place in Scotland, but that's George Romero. That's not the guy that made Descent.
I'm gonna look this up.
Yeah, it's not. No, it's not. Yeah, if you tell me the title right away, we'll know the title of that film. That was a really good film. I mean, I was a big fan of 28 Days. I know you guys don't really consider it as a zombie film, but definitely had the elements of a zombie project or zombie film, whatever you want to call it. I mean, World War Z was pretty cool. Also, I mean, I thought it was really cool because the fact that, you know, that was probably the very first time that you actually brought zombie films into like an A-list, you know, commercial. Brad Pitt. I mean, no one's ever had an A-list actor do a zombie film, and I thought that was incredible. When I heard it was coming out, and the first time I was like, yes, this is how big zombie films got. They gotten so big that Brad Pitt had agreed and signed on to do World War Z. I hear they're doing a sequel. I'm not sure if it's still on you know, scheduled to come out, or they're still doing it. But I thought it was just that was, to me, the biggest point of zombies. Like, you know, we've finally reached the toppest level. You know, even though a lot of people didn't, you know, really didn't care about it too much, I had enjoyed that film.
See,
and of course, you know, The Walking Dead is something that I always enjoyed. You know, I mean, everybody who's a big zombie fan is gonna love The Walking Dead as well.
I actually really like World War Z up until the end of the movie. I thought it was great, but I think it suffers from something that I like to call titleitis, where because it was so radically different from the book, people went into it because it said, based off of the Max Brooke, you know, book, people went into it thinking it was going to be, you know, somehow related to the book, and it absolutely positively was not, other than there were zombies all around the world.
And that he was traveling around, like, and things like that, and seeing it from different points of view, which I think was them trying to say it was World War Z, like, just like the book, that was the tie-in, but in the book it was done very differently, because he was a journalist interviewing people. So, yeah, I see what they were trying to do and why they called it World War Z, but I think that, yeah, it's like, the two are just very different, so taking them as different, like, kind of entities, it's not so bad. And then it just kind of felt like...
You kind of remind me also, remember Serpent Rainbow? What the title was
the voodoo zombie with... was it Jeff
Daniels? That also wasn't, you know, that should have been more promoted as a zombie film, you know, which, to me, my opinion, I thought that should have been more promoted as a zombie film, because basically on the gentleman who wrote that book, you know, that was the book was based on the journey that he took to Haiti, you know, and to find the living dead and everything like that. And I think that the element of them not putting it more as promoting it more. You know, we got to also talk about how it came out in the 80s. People were really into zombie films, so I could understand why they didn't promote it as a zombie film. But I think if they did, it could have been a classic, you know, film. You know, basically put more elements of the zombie search. You know, and that was basically the idea, or the main focus. What's his name? I think it was Mr. Davis who wrote that book back in we're going back, like, I don't know, probably 40s or 50s when he wrote that book, and that would be a great remake. That would be actually a really good remake, to go back to the original book and take the real studies from, again, I'm not sure if it's Mr. Davis's name, and to create that remake.
Well, and that brings up a great point, because, you know, there are more than just one type of zombie. You know, that's the classic voodoo zombie that, you know, through a voodoo ritual, or through using the whatever fish powder that was, you know, you could put someone into that near-death state, into that coma, that would bring them back, that they would come back kind of entranced, you know, soulless, quote unquote, if you would, and they would be given commands by their master to work as a zombie for them.
Yeah, that would be really cool if they can go back to that.
Yeah, I think,
or just, you know, reconsider making a remake of that film, but more focus on that.
Definitely, I think zombies, like, kind of, at least in film-wise, they kind of started out as kind of voodoo kind of thing. Because I know zombie, the word actually has origin in African folklore, and I think that it was originally supposed to be a witchcraft kind of voodoo thing. But nowadays, since we're more society is a lot more scientific, so I think people try to lean more toward the virus thing, even though ultimately the virus explanation makes just as much sense as the voodoo stuff when you really consider it.
Well, and that's what, like the original zombie movie, as many people say, is a White Zombie, which starred Bela Lugosi, and it was a voodoo zombie movie. And how they defeated the zombies in that was by throwing holy salt on the zombies. So it was a, purely magical, religious kind of fight. And it's come a long way to, like you said, the biological, from, there's not many mystical zombies out there anymore. Most of what we see is the biological, the virological, the virus type zombies. And just they really have come, and there was a huge boom in the zombie popularity contest back in the early to mid 2000s, because really, like, before that, zombies were like super ultra like low budget gold. Like, that's like, if you wanted to make a low budget movie, like, zombies were kind of like the go-to standard, and now it seems like, more and more they are like a higher class.
Everybody's expecting like big like effects with like big kill scenes and really realistic looking kind of makeup and just props.
That is so true, because before then, the studios wouldn't even come close to doing a zombie film. If you presented a zombie script or, even pitched a zombie, the studios were like, no way, we're not doing no zombie film. They'll stay away from this. Like you said, they take that more, keep it to the lower tier filmmaking. And yeah, we there was a time that you haven't seen yet. There was decades. I don't even remember, the 90s. I don't recall even seeing, there were zombie films, but they weren't like, how many really were out there that, zombie fans were able to see and be able to talk about now. I'm pretty sure we think about it more, we'll see, but the 90s was kind of like, I don't remember any like sort of like popular zombie films that came out. Am I wrong?
Aside from the remake of Night of the Living Dead, which came out in 1990, there, to my knowledge, were not any like big budget or really big release zombie films in the 90s.
No, it was the craze of even if we could even take a little step further, right? We can even say that in the 90s nobody really was touching horror films. And, you had 90, 91, 92, 93. That's when you had the Brothers McMullen. You have Vincent Gallo did Buffalo 66, and then when you have Pulp Fiction, Quentin Tarantino, that was that genre of like dialogue-driven films. It became this immediately successful. Pulp Fiction, of course, and everybody wanted to do this art house / low budget, but yet it had some sort of like a decent budget project. But they were more dialogue-driven. There were dramas, and had a little bit like twist to the films. And that decade in 90s wasn't as big for horror, zombies, or anything.
Yeah, 90s was very action-driven as far as blockbuster movies, action and some drama thrown in there. I mean, the only real like horror movie I can think of that came out of the 90s was Silence of the Lambs. Was somewhere in the 90s. Am I correct?
I would say so. Yes.
And then Bram Stoker's Dracula is the only other like horror movie, and like, Bram Stoker's Dracula, the Francis Ford Coppola version, was more like an erotic drama than it was like a horror movie, which, I mean, Dracula in and of himself isn't so much a horror novel as it is kind of like drama with some horror elements.
Mm-hmm. And that was a badass film. That the Dracula Francis Ford, that was an incredible film.
But but yeah. So why do you think zombies have become so popular as of recently? It really is like a phenomenal craze, because like we said, horror really did get toned down. Like, there was a lot of big horror and slashers and everything in the 80s. 90s kind of was more like an independent scene for horror. But in the 2000s and beyond, it really picked up again. Oh, Scream was a big franchise from the 90s.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Scream, yeah. And I Know What You Did Last Summer, which, yeah, they were pretty okay.
Yeah, I looked it up. Silence of the Lambs came out in 91, so, yep, 90s.
Yeah. So why do I think they became popular now than back then?
Yeah.
I don't know. You know what? I think it has to do with a lot. It has to do with studios also, and the medium was it wasn't easy access to film equipment as it started in the 90s. 94. I would go like 92, 94. As the early 90s came, it was starting to get easier for students, filmmakers, people who had a couple dollars, you know what I mean, but that wanted to make a film. It was easier access to get equipment, get people, and start making films. Like we're in the 80s, we were talking about action-packed films, but in the 80s, everything was actually funneled through big studios or some sort of decent studios that would give money. So yeah, and then you had the people who would do ultra low budget with the zombie films. No one was going to touch that. Nobody, and there wasn't, when Miramax came in, Harvey Weinstein kind of gave the blueprint of, how we're going to be able to, let's not stay only here and domestically, let's go to film festivals overseas. Let's go watch the film, and we can actually, make a offer to these filmmakers, these independent filmmakers, to make a purchase, buy the film, distribute here, domestically, international, and everything. He gave the blueprint, and when early 90s, that's when they started making, purchasing films overseas, and at the same time, equipment was starting to get easier, and then you had the Canon XL, that was like, the mother of all digital cameras that came in that early 90s. Like, wow, I could make a film and look so good that a studio or a producer or a distributor can say, hey, this is good quality, so I could pick up the film and I could distribute it. So as it started to come out, then you had the Panasonic, the VX100, and then, you had an On24, progressive scanner, and it started looking like cinema. Now you have like, okay, we can make a film for like $150,000, and when the 2000s came and the budget started getting less and less, and people was making films for $20,000-$30,000 now, and I think that's when people's like makeup started. You had to get makeup artists and everything, and you'd be able to do visual effects, and everything started to look good because you was able to manipulate the picture so much. Than before, is what you see is what you get. And things started getting easier to do, and studios are now have no choice to say, hey, this film looks good, let's pick it up. And I think the horror was always popular with the film community. It's something that we all love, and even in the 80s, all the movies that's getting revamped. Look, John Carpenter's, looks like all his films are going to be, I think he's the only filmmaker that has gotten like 5 or 6 films already in his belt that's going to be remade. Nobody's ever done it, and they're all horror films. Because people love that. People loved that back in the 80s and whatever, 70s. They loved the horror films, and they wanted to bring it back alive. And I think that's the only genre that, you could be able to think about it. How many films are remakes compared to action films to horror? If you think about it, a lot of the remakes are horror films. People want to relive that fear and everything like that. And, that's my kind of, I could be, it's my, I'm not saying I'm wrong, but I think that's why starting to get more popular, because of the easy access of equipment and the fact that things could look really good on cinema, on the cameras now. These cameras, before, when you shot a movie in film, look, if you shot on 16 millimeter, of course, when I began filmmaking, it was all film. There was no such thing as a digital camera when I shot. You got to roll 400 roll film 16 millimeter. I can still remember the price. It was between $100 and $120 for just a 400-foot roll that would just give you 10 minutes. Okay? That's crazy. And then to process it is almost equal, the same. So you're talking about a 10-minute thing to be processed. It was like $225, $250, depending who you're going to get. And then think about it, 35 millimeters, half. It's like 4 minutes for 400-foot roll, and that's the same price. So it's so damn expensive. So that's my feeling of why it's become more popular.
I want to attribute some of the popularity to kind of like if you look at the '90s, the most popular thing I think in the '90s as far as zombie wise went was the video game Resident Evil, and a lot of kids have grown up with that series, and I know they made like the Resident Evil movies, but I think that a lot of kids grew up with horror video games, and that has really boosted the sellability of horror again today, as opposed to yesteryear, because in the people that grew up in the '80s grew up with that horror stuff, and they wanted to see something different in the '90s. Well, in the '90s, we grew up with something different, and then it got to that point again where horror was what they wanted again, and I think, like you said, the company saw that it was easier to make them cheaper now, and there's just so much profitability, and it's kind of become more of a social norm to accept the violent side of cinema, as opposed to years past. It used to be, your kids messed up, they're watching all these horror movies, you shouldn't let them do that. And nowadays it's more or less embraced. That's the one good thing I can say about like the whole acceptance thing. Don't be afraid to be you thing that like some people just take a little too far. You can't be offended by anything, or you have to be offended by everything. Whatever. However, I'm saying it's probably coming out wrong, but it's okay to like horror movies, and that's something that's come out recently. And I think that has really helped it, because that was one of those things, like a lot of other things, that kind of used to get shoved under the rug by parents, and kids in trouble.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, if you, that's a question too that people would ask me: why do you think zombie films are popular? Like, that is one answer I always say is, I think because violence has become much more accepted to especially in television. Everything is violent, for even back in the days. But yeah, I think just as in even music and film and television. I mean, dude, imagine we watch things like 25 years ago, what we see on TV. That'd be like crazy. Shut it down.
The stuff on TV today would have been considered a video nasty back in the '80s.
Yeah, I've got a couple points with the zombie thing. One, I think that when it comes to zombie films, you really don't have to pay that many professional actors, because anybody can play a zombie. Really, you just need the right makeup and to walk around like a zombie, basically. So yeah, I think that's part of it. Like, you look at a lot of the time period when zombie films started becoming more mainstream. Well, what else became bigger? Reality television, because you didn't have to pay professional actors. So I think part of it, like you were saying before, was it really does cut down on price and everything, and I think that's a big thing. Also, they were getting popular, so it was a huge market that a lot of people wanted to cover. But I think the biggest thing with zombie films is the fact that as time went on, people started to realize it wasn't just about people escaping monsters. Like, you look at a lot of classic monster films, and like Dracula and Frankenstein. And while those had bigger concepts initially, like Frankenstein about where we go too far with science and things like that, or Dracula with a dictator who basically is immoral and becomes like a demon around this area. It was one interpretation out of it. But basically, when it comes to zombies, it's society going through a huge change. Not only is the concept of death now not a permanence, but your family, your friends, they're now your enemies. So everyone around you is now going after you. Plus, in a lot of the zombie things, like especially like The Walking Dead, society has fallen. So people have to now go through an entirely new world where they don't know what to trust. All safety nets and everything that we've become used to are gone. So I think people really like those concepts, and I think the zombies not only add a fear of the unknown, but they also add a what if society fell. And I think people started to realize that around the time that zombie films started to become big. It's that if anyone can become a zombie just by getting bitten, and the dead are rising, then society as we know it is going to be different, and on top of the already inherent, like, what if society were to fall? Like, remember in the year 2000, everyone was afraid of that Y2K bug. They're like, oh, society as we know it, like, it's going to fall, like, computers are going to crash, and, we're going to go back to the dark ages. It's like, that's an inherent fear that we always have, and I think that zombies not only add that, but they add that dread of what's out in the darkness, and I think it's a very good combination of a lot of things that we all inherently fear. So, like, people always say, should zombies be able to run? And there's a lot of interesting things to that. One, running zombies are definitely more threatening, and they're definitely scarier. But when it comes to walking zombies, you have to look at them in the face and then shoot them. It's kind of like being in a war where you shoot somebody like who's up close. You have to see them as a human being, and that person could be your friend or your family member. And it's just that psychological horror in front of you. So I think that people realize that zombies could be a much bigger concept than initially seen.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's the $1 million question, right? I mean, it'd be great for even for a documentary to go and talk to many peoples around the world and the arts or whatever in filmmaking of why people aren't zombies. There's not one answer, and I think that's pretty awesome. That question. There's no one knows that answer. I mean, there's so many reasons why we think and why it could be, but it's still a question that could be answered in so many ways. So that's pretty cool about that whole zombie thing. The whole zombie genre is just everyone has their own reasons of why they think it's popular and why they like them. And to go back to your point of people talking about walking and running zombies, that's another thing. Even with my project, I've done a zombie with a shotgun. You do get really hardcore fans that tell me, you're a zombie. That makes no sense. Zombies are not supposed to hold guns. Zombies are not supposed to do that. Zombies are not supposed to talk, run. So you get a lot of these hardcore, people that are so into this, what zombies should be, the mythology of zombies, and I've had many debates of people to tell me this, and it's like, it is what it is.
Pretty much, that's a good point. Like, I don't think with how many zombie films there have been that there really are completely set rules of what a zombie can be. The only thing is that they have to be dead and reanimated. But as far as, like, even going back to George Romero's, like, Day of the Dead, there's a zombie shooting a guy. Like, so I don't think that there's really one set kind of formula for it.
And George Romero explores that again in Land of the Dead, where, the Big Daddy zombie is learning, and the zombies are learning to use tools, to, use guns, to do things that they used to do in life. And to that whole, someone who argues, oh, zombies are supposed to be this, zombies are supposed to be that, I would love to bring up, in different mythologies around the world, if you look at the Chinese zombie, they are brought back, through a ritual with a magic paper. I can't remember what those are called. And zombies in Chinese mythology, a talisman. They hop. They don't walk. They don't run. They hop. And then once a zombie from the Chinese mythology tastes human blood, they become a vampire, and they get super strength. They can jump higher. They can move about more freely. But as a zombie, all they can do is hop. And it's just one of those things, who's to say what is the right way for a zombie to zombie around? Just because one movie has portrayed this or this has been the popular thing. As far as the running zombies go, there's also the theory that, as they're dead, the muscles, they stiffen up or they break down. So the fresh dead can run. The fresh dead can speak in some cases or in, some films. But as they are dead longer or as they are injured, they lose some of the capacity to do those things, and that's why they walk or they're slower or they're weaker or what have you, because they are the longer dead.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I've had so many conversations about that. Even talking about how you said that the Chinese or Asian of how they portray zombies, and I always tell people it's different. I mean, you could go to eat every, parts of the world. Everyone has their own, interpretation. But again, I still get those hardcore guys that says, you're wrong. It's like, I don't say anything. I'm like, look, that's what you like. That's what you like. I mean, look, there's like I said, there is a lot of hardcore zombie fans that just would not accept what I, brought out, and whatever whatever's out there.
Yeah, it's like zombies don't run. You know what else they don't do? Exist. So it's really hard to say that you're being unrealistic or something with like zombies, because like technically, like you can, like I watched a documentary on quote unquote documentary on zombies, and they were able to point out like they're trying to prove that zombies could exist in the real world, and they'd say, well, we can find ways that something can kind of be possibly reanimated with certain viruses, because there are things that kind of put you in a state that's near death, and then you kind of in a zombie-like state. And then, of course, there's things like rabies that'll make you more violent and things and like attack people. But the two really contradict each other. Like, you can't be dead and rabid together. That's scientifically impossible. But that's what's fun about it, is like people can talk as much as they want about zombies, like the scientific explanation, but you're always going to be contradicting yourself somewhere. So the whole point is they can't really exist, so no one is really doing them wrong. It's just how they choose to have them. So yeah, I like to think that overall zombies are supposed to be fun. Like it can, like, a lot of it is you can have a lot of like deep concepts about zombies and society with it, but overall it's just got to be fun, I think.
I mean, I remember a movie from the Sci-Fi Channel, Route 666, where a chain gang of zombies can only exist on cement. They can't move on dirt. They can't move on sand. They can only exist on cement because they were bulldozed by the prison guard that murdered them and buried inside the road. So, they can only exist on cement. Like, zombies can walk anywhere. Well, not these guys. It's interpretation and having fun, and what fits the plot line of your movie or your comic.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like I said, I always tell people, the people from back in the days in the old school, they're stuck to, their ways. That's okay. I'm old school also. As sometimes, there's people that don't let go, and, it's like always you say, hey, music back then is so much better than now. I mean, things are different. Music is different the way it is. Of course, growing up when earlier, that's the music you grow with, it's the music you like, and the new generation just comes in. New generation of storytelling is just different. Everything is we want things to evolve, and as we see in every single sort of art form has evolved. Of course, the music has evolved. Many things has evolved, and and I just say, hey, I don't like the music that we have now, but you know what? I accept it. I respect it. I'd be like, you know what? That's how I grew up with that sort of music. Let people have fun and let people do their things. Let people do what they like to do. As long at the end of the day, you're having fun. And you're doing something different and very constructive.
Definitely. I think people get too caught up in like nostalgia, and since zombie movies have been around for so long, it's like, oh well, my zombies are better than your zombies. It's like, my zombies compete with your zombies. It's like, okay,
well, I mean, I think Bub could kick any zombie's ass.
Is that the one from Day of the Dead?
From Day of the Dead, yeah.
That was a great film.
I think he could take Big Daddy in a heartbreak.
That's the list, right? Which is the kick-ass zombie?
Then there's Sushi Boy from Biozombie. I mean,
oh yeah, what was it? It wasn't Chinese.
Yeah, it was Chinese.
I thought it was from Hong Kong or something like that. Well, I guess Hong Kong's now.
Well, one time Hong Kong was in China. They spoke Cantonese dialect.
Yeah.
But then again, there's of course Dr. Carl Hill, who could probably rule the zombie verse. If Herbert West didn't get in the way.
Yeah, Reanimator's a film that...
We're forgetting one kick-ass zombie. There's one other one that we think could kick everyone's ass.
The zombie with a shotgun?
No, Mr. Michael Jackson. And I tell a lot of people that I think that's the most kick-ass zombie, and
Not
and
only
I even
is-
tell a lot of people that I always bring this up because I always say that it's so funny. In 1984, we saw the first time how a zombie had evolved, and no one took it from there and developed it. They just went right back to the old Night of the Living Dead sort of zombies. And that's one kick-ass zombie. And everyone tends to forget that. I guess the fact that they did it so well, John Landis, and that is like, the greatest music video in history. It is the first time you had music history that you had, people back dancers in the background and everything, and it's just incredible that people forget that was the one kick-ass zombie video,
And not only-
could go down as one of the greatest.
Not only was Michael Jackson a zombie in the Thriller video, there is a little-known movie that we love here called Inbred Redneck Evil Dead, where in order to defeat the inbred rednecks that have come back from the grave due to some demonic chance, they summon a zombie Michael Jackson to defeat the inbred rednecks.
Is the ultimate zombie, really?
So yeah,
Yeah.
I do think that is a very, very valid point.
Definitely.
Zombie Michael Jackson, the very easily forgotten, but how could you forget?
King of pop and king of zombies, apparently.
Yeah, you could say that, especially with John Landis behind the camera. Woof,
Oh, yeah.
a great combination there.
I do think it's interesting that zombies have kind of taken their place as classic monsters, kind of in the same thing as vampires and like Frankenstein and the Invisible Man and things
Werewolves.
like that. Werewolves and things
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. Like,
And it's pretty interesting too. Vampires and zombies are sort of parallel with each other, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're both Walking Dead. They have, of course, the vampire is more sexier and everything like that. But you both have sort of, two, monsters that are, sort of moving, are supposedly, dead or whatever. I think that's pretty interesting.
Well, and that's why they tie directly to each other in specifically, to my knowledge, Chinese mythology.
Yeah.
A vampire is the next step after being a zombie. And I'm sure there are other mythologies out there that, the zombie becomes something else, at one time or another. That like a zombie is just the weakest, it is the lowest tier of the undead, and it just goes up from there.
well, lots of vampire stories. If the vampire bites somebody, they'll become a zombie who's now working for the vampire. Vampires are kind of like aristocratic zombies who kind of rule over the other ones.
There is one type of zombie that you never do see in film, at least to my knowledge, and that is a lich. And that is a zombie who has magical powers above other zombies. They're not like a vampire or anything. They're a zombie just like the others, but they have a magical power where they can control other zombies. You do see some that can control other zombies, but none with like a magical power or like a necromancer who's a zombie.
Aren't liches supposed to be?
I think Marvel had a comic, right, a long time ago, back in the 60s and 70s, that had like a series sort of like that. I forgot what was it called.
I know they had Simon Garth zombie, but he was a
Yeah.
voodoo zombie.
Yeah, I think there was a long time ago. It was a comic book that had sort of that, but I forgot the name of it, But yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Aren't liches supposed to be like a somebody who's able to use magic and died and came back as like as basically a zombie, but like to gain gain certain dark powers? That's what I thought the mythology was.
Perhaps, but again, it's something you don't really see that.
I know an example of what would I guess be considered a lich.
What?
You ever see that one episode way back when of the Powerpuff Girls with the magician zombie?
I did see that.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be
That's
one.
technically a lich.
I was
Yeah,
going to say the only other one of those that I know is in the TV show Z Nation. You might be able to say that Murphy is a lich, but it's still not quite certain whether Murphy is actually a zombie or not, or something different entirely. Because he can read zombies' minds and control them and things like that. Spoiler alert: if you haven't seen the first like half of season 1. It's been out for like years now.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. There's so much stuff to watch now these days, right?
Too much nowadays.
But yeah, any other thoughts or anything you'd like to say about zombies?
Well, we could talk about, I hear that, they're going to make a sequel to 28 Weeks Later still.
That's been like years in the making, I thought. It was supposed to be, 28 months later?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, that's one
I
of those
mean, you
things.
could talk... Go for it.
No, I was just saying, that's one of those things. There are so many zombie movies that it's like they come out and... or zombie-like movies that come out and they say, we're going to make a sequel, and it just enters that like pre-production hell where it's like there's a script or there's like one facet of it that's completed, and then just like it gets passed from company to company, or it just gets put on the back burner for some reason.
Yeah, I even heard that, I don't know if you guys remember this year, like about maybe probably 4 or 5 years ago, that Dawn of the Dead was optioned by, I think, MTV, and MTV was supposed to do a television series of Dawn of the Dead.
Was it going to star zombie Michael Jackson? Because that's the only reason MTV should do a Dawn of the Dead, is if it had a musical zombie star.
Well, MTV does Teen Wolf. It was very, it was successful, but until I think the main actor got hit by a car, right, during the one of the scenes in the film. Yeah, I think what's his name? The gentleman who owns all those properties from Dawn of the Dead and all that stuff, even Night of the Living Dead, he options it on, and a lot of people try to option it. I guess it was the right price and everything. I think Dakota Films was going in with it also. Didn't hear anything about it. I mean, I'm not sure if it was going to be, because MTV, I think, is owned by Viacom. So, I mean, I'm not sure if that was going to be on MTV channel strictly, but they have so many other channels. But I know that was something they were talking about for a while, and I was like, I would like to see how they're going to do this. If they were going to do, like, New Generation or whatever they're going to do, but nothing ever came out of it.
I would love to see, since Viacom owns it, like, Dawn of the Dead on Nickelodeon. Like...
Hey, listen, you never know. That's another thing too. There should be a really kick-ass cartoon animation, zombie animation. No one's really even thought of even doing something like that. Something that's for the hardcore fans that could come into, like, maybe at night sci-fi, or one of these. That would be so cool, man. I mean, it's so zombie-ish, to see something animated. You could do all these animated monster films, but an animated zombie thing really would work.
And that's
for zombie fans and everything, because and when I talk about animated, it has to be hardcore. It has to be for the hardcore fans. And I think that would be such a kick-ass thing if somebody can just put monies into it and put it into some sort of, even like freaking Netflix, an animated freaking zombie thing. That would be kick-ass, dude.
And I would love to see something other than the only one that I really know was High School of the Dead, which was an anime. It was a 12 or a 13 episode series, and it was. I would like to see one that has a great story, and I think that's something else that has helped zombies. Recently, is there's a lot more story going on in zombie movies. It's not just all blood and gore, and High School of the Dead was all, I want to say, fan service. It was either, shots of, the girls' boobs, panties, or blood and gore happening. And those were the only three things you saw on screen, like, at any given time. And I would love to see something that, like, put a little more, like, thought into the writing and the dialogue. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the series because there was, plenty of zombie action. But I wish there was something that was more story-driven in the zombie verse as like an animated version. That would be really, really sweet to see. And there's just so many more things you could do with an animated version as opposed to a live action, and it would kind of make more sense or look better.
It was a really cool cartoon zombie thing. You ever see back, like, many years ago, the music video to the Gorillaz song Clint Eastwood?
Oh, yeah.
That was awesome. I remember that, like, with the zombie gorillas and everything.
And
That was great.
as much as I do not like the movie The Haunted World of El Super Beasto, part of some of the best part of that movie is the zombie Nazis.
It's a great film.
Yeah. It definitely was. Yeah, you're right. That's funny. You're talking about zombie Nazis. I was just thinking about that a couple minutes ago. About talking about movies that were how zombies became popular, and the zombie Nazis. Part 1 and Part 2.
Oh, Dead Snow.
Dead Snow. That's right. That's right.
Nazi zombies aren't a new concept either. I mean, in the 80s, you had Oasis of the Dead. And then, there's another one. Was it 78, 79? You had a movie called Shockwaves, which was about zombie Nazis from a submarine. And those zombie Nazis, they were immortal, just like the zombies from Return of the Living Dead. Like you just couldn't kill them unless you took off their sunglasses and their eyes saw the sun. Which, I mean, that's almost as ridiculous as the movie Homecoming, where zombies come back to life to vote. You can't stop them unless you let them vote for the president of the United States.
Zombies wearing sunscreen vampires wearing sunscreen like in
Blade.
Blade.
What other kind of ridiculous zombies have there been out there? I mean, you've got zombies that die by voting, zombies that die by their eyes seeing the sun. I know there was a movie called The Pit in the 80s where they were zombies, but they could only be killed with holy water or by the nun, the crazy nun in the mental institution.
Oh my God, you're right, yes.
And then I think they got like all the mental patients to like pray or something at the end, and that's how they killed all the zombies. Like,
yes. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, you're right. Such a long, yeah.
But yeah, there's just so many ridiculous things that have done with
zombies. You keep on thinking. You see so many versions and so many, even small sneak zombie, tributes or whatever you want to call it. But it's there's so many things. It's just how the zombie genre, it's become almost like its own genre because, even when people say, the horror genre, they would tell me the zombie genre. And that's how big it has. It has its own little genre, so it's become so massive.
There's even a children's book series. Now, it's meant for older children. I think it says like ages 8 to 13 or something in the book. I still read it. I don't care. I'm a giant child. By John Clopfer, called The Zombie Chasers. And it is it's a zombie series that's meant for children. Even that, like when we were talking about like an animated zombie cartoon, I even thought that could be a zombie cartoon that I could actually see coming on like Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network, like legitimately. It's a fun little series, but in that series, zombies are killed by using ginkgo biloba, which is a vitamin supplement that supposedly helps your memory.
That's pretty cool. I've seen it online. I've never read any sort of description or synopsis of it, but I do see it a lot.
Yeah, it's about these middle schoolers who their town gets turned into zombies because of the new fast food chain Wiener Burger, or I think it's Wiener Dog, or Burger Dog. That's it, where they have burgers that are shaped like hot dogs, but of course they're infected with the zombie virus. So everyone that eats a burger dog becomes a zombie.
Of course.
So, these, 12 and 13-year-old boys and girls have to save the world.
I'm surprised they didn't do the film on that yet. Such a big following it has. I see it online.
It's only a matter of time before it becomes an animated series.
You're right.
There's just so many fun ways. Oh, Hood of the Dead. I forgot about that movie where you kill zombies by destroying the heart. Because the zombie virus is being pumped by the heart. It's not the brain in that movie. Same guys
never saw that one.
Same guys went on to make a vampire movie called The Damned, which still required you to stab things in the heart.
Pretty much. So it's kind of like a combination of vampire zombie.
Yeah. Man, I've seen so many zombie movies that I've forgotten how many I've seen.
Yeah, after a while.
Yeah, you reminded me of a couple of them. Like, wow, I totally forgot about that one.
I feel like they kind of run together after a while. It's like they're all just one giant zombie movie.
I mean, they just kind of shamble together in one horde.
Yeah. Like, even sometimes when you even look at, John Carpenter's Fog, they were sort of kind of zombies coming back. There was this coming back for their gold or whatever, their treasure, and it had some sort of feel to it.
Pretty much.
Never really got to know what they were.
They were pirates, obviously.
Yeah, they were pirates, but were they like, they were living dead pirates.
We do know, though, that they were not a Q-tip, a comb, and a tissue. And a movie
flashlight,
projector.
yeah.
A flashlight. So there you
Say
have
it again? I'm sorry. I missed that.
Oh, it was a little South Park joke.
Yeah, I wasn't really into South Park.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There's another thing I forgot about. Pink Eye.
Oh yeah, there's an episode of South Park where people start becoming zombies. They're like, oh, you've got a bad case of pink eye.
And they became zombies because during the autopsy of a dead person, Worcestershire sauce was poured into them instead of embalming fluid.
And there's a warning on the Worcestershire sauce: do not use near a dead body because it will reanimate them. That was a good one. Yeah, but that's the thing.
I did hear it about that.
Yeah, that's a classic Halloween episode.
Which brings up another point of something that happens a lot with zombies, or has happened in the past, where it's one of those, you kill the main one, you kill the originator, and the others will recover, which is something you see a lot more with vampires than zombies. But it's been used several times.
Yeah, there's like a main one that kind of controls all of them. Yeah. Definitely a lot with that. All I have to say is, in most zombie movies I've noticed, you gotta be really stupid to get bitten by a zombie. Because most of them don't run, they can't think very well, and you can just push them away. So that's one thing.
I always thought the same thing too. I would always say to myself, how the hell, if you had a big, you lived in town, and you get all you guys and say, okay, listen, we're going to lure all the zombies here and we're going to take care of them. I mean, I always feel like that. It's like, dude, how can you not take care of that? I mean, lower them to a freaking huge stadium or whatever. One big entrance. Everyone is there and just pop each one of them.
That's one of my favorite scenes in The Walking Dead, the comic book and the movie, where the zombies are coming into the town. And Rick goes out and starts axing them, and the town just kind of joins in, and they defeat this zombie horde hand to hand, and nobody dies. Nobody actually got bitten through that whole thing. And that's one of those things that that makes absolute sense. If you just get them, take them on one at a time, have them come through a small opening, and just person after person, you take your turn. Take one down. Next person, take one down. It's kind of like the 300 situation. You just funnel them.
Yeah. And yet somehow society fell to these things. The entire military couldn't figure out how to do it. Any world military. But these guys, they figured it out in a little while. It's come on, people. Are we at that point, you just kind of deserve to get taken over by the living dead. I mean, if you're that incompetent where you're just oh man, he's coming to life. Let me hold my hand out in front of his mouth. I hope nothing bad happens. Yeah, you deserve it at that point.
And that comes to one of the iconic lines, I think, from Day of the Dead, which is, we should just shoot them all. We don't have enough bullets left to shoot them all. Or however he says it.
Yeah.
But any final thoughts or final words on zombies, Hilton?
No, I think we covered a lot of it.
Well, before we go, would you like to? I know we had you on the show once before, but would you like to talk about your zombie with a shotgun a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Since the last time I've been on your show, as you can see, we've finally launched. The comic has finally got picked up. We're going to. We started a pre-order page for anybody who's interested in picking up the comic. It's been doing really well. It's received very well with a lot of people, of course, that's into the zombie genre, horror genre, or just into the zombie with a shotgun. We're still in the phase of editing. There's looks like there possibility there may be an extra scene that may be shot for the film to add in. But everything's going well. We schedule. Hopefully, we had put that May would be the month that we would have the film ready, and it looks like we're going to hit it. I mean, there's always some sort of little setbacks, and that always comes to the sound design, and how can we create more, the sound, fix the sound more, visual effects and stuff like that. So we're soon going to get to that sort of phase where we have to get the sounds and the whole fun stuff. Get the right music for it. Right sound mix. Right effects, right visual effects, right titles, right gradation. All those things, all those fun stuff. So so far so good. And and I appreciate a lot of the people, a lot of the support that we had for the film. I think it's an amazing journey from where it started and where it is now, especially for the fact that, we started a campaign and we ended the campaign of last year, July. And as soon as that campaign was done, we immediately took 1 month after that campaign was done to shoot the project, which is pretty unheard of. A lot of these campaigns, they take a while. They take more than a few months, sometimes 6 months, 7 months, many times a year to start production. I felt that the best way to do it was to do it immediately. There was just no time to wait, especially we were in the summer. I felt like when we get into September, everyone's going back to school and then October comes and then you shoot, then the holidays came right away, November, December. So I was like, no, we need to do it now, because once we get into that, territory of September and then you got November, forget about it. So I'm really happy what we've done, with everybody, the crew members and everybody, the actors. We did a good job, and that's where we're at right now. I mean, we look like we're in schedule for it May, maybe June, but it's looking good, with the comic, with the film, and hopefully from there we'll see when the film is completed and done how it gets received, and if there is a possibility for a sequel or something else more on the works for Zombie with a Shotgun. But the comic book is here, and we feel like that is something that will always stay for now and hopefully for a very long time.
Now, where can we follow you, Zombie with a Shotgun, and where is the comic going to be available? And when the film comes out, where will we be able to see that or find that at?
Okay, you can. A lot of people who have never heard of Zombie with a Shotgun, I always tell them the best thing is to Google Zombie with a Shotgun, and you're able to see all the stuff that's on it. You can see the progress of what it. You can read all about it. You could go to zombiewithashotgun.com. You get to see the stuff what's going on. If you want to go on Twitter, you can hit me on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Tumblr, everything. You just search, put Zombie with a Shotgun. I'm usually giving updates on a daily basis on Twitter account. So that's something that if somebody really wants to know about what's really going on a daily basis, that's somewhere you can find me. The comic is going to be released sometime in June. It looks like June 28th is where the publishers had put it out to be released. There's a possibility that it may release it a little bit earlier. They say that it's there's a big, the fan base is really turning out very well for it. Once the film is done, we definitely would like to have we would like to have a screening in New York, definitely, because this is my hometown. And if there's any sort of theater release, it would be definitely here in New York. We're not sure LA, depending on what distributor wants to pick it up. But we're definitely going to go be streaming. International, of course, that's, that doesn't matter, but whatever, but we definitely would like to start streaming, and we will be pitching it to all the outlets, such as, of course, the usual suspects, Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, and see from there. I mean, if there's already a lot of interest from a lot of the distributors, a lot of the main companies that I've mentioned, there's a lot of interest there. They're just waiting for the film to be done and see how it's received and where it's from there. That's what basically it's all about. It's all about the finished product. And if it's something that's very satisfactory, something that's very good or whatever, there's a big chance that you'll be able to see it in all those outlets. But the film will definitely be streaming somewhere, someplace. We just need to figure that out once the film is done and see who is the best party that will be able to give the best possible release for the film.
We're glad to hear things are going so well and things are running sounds like on schedule and everything. It's wonderful to hear.
A lot to look forward
Yes,
to.
thank you.
So there you have it, B-movie fans. Until next time, be brave, be alive, be back for more.
Get on my knees.